Welcome to Gather for Wellness Radio, brought to you by GatherForWellness.com, where we bring wellness experts to you so you can listen, learn, implement, and thrive.
I'm your host, Becky Litwicki, here for episode number 17. And for this episode, I did a little time travel. Well, not really, but I did get to talk to Mitle Southey, who is a holistic lifestyle coach and culinary nutrition expert living a day ahead of me down in Western Australia. Her passion and purpose is to inspire and motivate you to create a nourishing and nurturing relationship with yourself and your kitchen. She has a special interest in supporting professional women who, despite being health conscious, are feeling depleted and have a strong desire to embrace a lifestyle that truly supports and nourishes them at every level. Mitle partners with her clients to get them clear on how they want to feel and take action to make sustainable changes through her one-on-one coaching program called Dare to Flourish. It's available via Skype or in person. Here's a sneak peek.
I have this connection inside me that knew that we are meant to be healthy. That's why would we be here? We are meant to be truly healthy.
Mitt, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So in reviewing your website for this call, I pulled out some really good nuggets that you have on there. And one is on your bio page, and you say, "Mine is not a quick fix, self-healing story. It's taken me years with many detours. However, it has been my best adventure, healing, being truly healthy, and living with happiness in my heart. My calling is to share what I've learned with others." Can you talk about some of the challenges that you had to face and the detours that you took, and then what things you used to still be able to get to where you are today?
Yes, of course. Well, I guess like everybody, we all have our challenges and experiences, and mine happened really in my late teenage years, which led me to a place where I was just very unhealthy. I went off to university and I was suffering from anxiety. I had post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was diagnosed with depression. And then through that, I had physical sort of woes as well. I had irritable bowel syndrome. So generally, I was quite young and just feeling pretty awful most of the time. I was very lucky that I grew up in a foodie family, so I always was able to cook, and I always had a good knowledge of healthy food and where my food came from. But I found that sort of eating well and being physically fit, I was still unwell at a sort of emotional level, and a spiritual level, really.
Yeah.
So for me, I guess that was kind of the highlight, that there was this holistic approach, and you really did need to connect mind, body, and spirit. But I didn't have one of those moments. I've met people who found their thing, and it might have been yoga, or it might have been meditation, or it might have been a raw food diet. They found something that transformed their health and their wellness, and that they ran with that. Well, I didn't find that. I experimented with all sorts of things, and things helped, and some things I loved, and some things I didn't like. But I was sort of on this dual path. On the one side, I was trying lots of holistic remedies, and then on the other side, I was drinking too much and still kind of trying to party and have this student lifestyle that I just wasn't really equipped for. So that was kind of feeding into the anxiety, etc. So I don't know what I sounded. I was a bit of a mess, really, but I had this real yearning to be really healthy, and I had this connection inside me that knew that we are meant to be healthy. That why would we be here? We are meant to be truly healthy.
Yeah.
So I guess how I got where I am now is I just kept going, and sometimes that took me forward, sometimes it took me backwards, and sometimes it took me sideways. But I got to explore so many different aspects of health and wellness, and I guess it was in my late 20s, early 30s, I was still trying to find my big answer, my guru, whatever it was. And I was a lawyer by that point, and I took a career break, and I went off traveling around the world, still looking for the one fix-it cure. That was, Exactly. I was like, there must be an answer to life and to my sort of not feeling great all the time. And I just found that there there isn't really one answer for everybody. We all have to find our thing, but I think it's a mixture of approaches. And I got to where I am really by coming to terms with who I am and learning to really accept myself and love myself completely and utterly. And that's still hard on some days.
Yeah.
But that for me was really about tuning in, beginning to really listen to my intuition and really trust myself and what was right for me. And it was when I started to do that that I found modalities that worked for me. Nutrition and food is, I guess, my first love, because I was lucky enough to grow up with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely, where my current modality is. I work a lot with food, but that's not the answer to everything without all the other elements. And often when I'm working with my clients, we start with, your emotions and where you are spiritually, because that's so important. And I read, I think it was Deepak Chopra who once said, you can eat the healthiest meal in the world, but if you're rushing around and you're scoffing it down and you're on your phone and all that, your body still can't assimilate and digest that.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that balance. So I guess for me, that was kind of the detours and challenges, that I wanted a solution that was just going to fix me.
Right.
And I had to learn that was already within me, and that the other modalities can support that and help. But it's finding that self-acceptance and then finding the things that can support your own health.
Yeah. I think that you said that so beautifully. I think that's so important. Like, I think we're trained to think that one diet is going to be the solution, or one specific workout or something. And like, those definitely all improve our health, but we have to keep in mind that we, like you said, we have the answers within us. So what were some of the things that you did that really kind of taught you some of the more valuable lessons, even if you went backwards? Like, I feel like sometimes the things I've tried where it's like, you think it's going to be really beneficial, and at the end of it, you're like, you feel worse, but still there's a lesson to be learned from that. So what were some of the things that you tried?
Well, in terms of modalities, I pretty much tried everything. I started seeing, I'd been sort of obviously through the conventional routes. I'd seen my doctor, etc., and was being given lots of medication for all sorts of things. So then I found a naturopath. I was living in London at the time, and I found an Australian naturopath, and that really opened my eyes to this whole other world of not just food, but herbs, and she did allergy testing, and that was quite new to me. I'd never really understood that we could have such a reaction to foods, that were just on the supermarket shelf. I also discovered, moving forward more, was discovering massage. I think healing therapy, touching therapies are incredibly healing. And again, for me, that was a lot about learning to accept my body and, stripping off and allowing someone to massage you. I found really confronting. Now I go weekly, but back then it was a really confronting experience.
Sure, yeah.
And I guess, yoga was another one for me, but I tried lots of different types of yoga. I didn't find the one. And to be honest with yoga, I'm still looking. I love it, and I do a much more slower sort of hatha-style yoga these days. But I tried Ashtanga, which I loved for a while. And I guess for me, again, it's finding, like, I'm quite a high-energy person. Mm-hmm. And so I did a lot of high-energy things. Like, I would go to the gym and really work out and do spin classes and then do Ashtanga yoga. But it was all kind of keeping me at that level of stress and anxiety. And learning that you need to balance that.
That's so true.
You're operating in that zone, then the other side, is yes. And which is what they do teach you. You do a pose one way, and then you need to do the pose the other way.
Balance it out.
So I think it's similar in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've said that beautifully. I think finding balance is key, and I think the other important thing, like you said, you liked something for a while, and I think it's okay to honor the fact that what I like today could be perfect for me today, but maybe in a few months it's not, depending on, the other things in our life or the environment, or, there are so many factors that come into play that I think we just have to stay in tune with how things are. Just because it worked at one point doesn't mean it's going to work forever, even if it is a holistic modality.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Becky. And I think that's such an important point, because often I find, or I meet people who they've got one thing. So whether it's a new form of eating, especially with food, I mean, raw diets, paleo diets, vegetarian diets, whatever, we tend to cling on to something.
Yep.
And maybe a vegetarian diet really does work for you for the moment, but maybe later on when you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding or whatever, that diet's no longer serving you and your sort of highest purpose and what you now need to do. So yes, it took me a long time to really understand that it's not that there's something wrong with me or that I'm not committed enough.
Right.
But that it is a journey. I think that's why I always use the word adventure, because it changes. And what you need today, you're right, that could be perfect today, and next week it's not really applying anymore because other things in your life have changed.
Totally. So another awesome quote that I pulled from your website is that you said, "I honor you as an expert of your own health and wellness." And I think this goes in line with what we've been talking about, and I love this so much. We actually talked with the guest on our last show about just becoming your own expert. So is there anything else that you want to expand on about discovering how to be your own expert and tuning into that?
Well, yes, I think for me that, again, is the other side of it. Because of my journey of learning that there was nobody who could fix me, that it was about discovering what worked for me and going with that and trusting myself. When I work with clients, that is what I want to sort of facilitate or help them find. Mm-hmm. So in terms of becoming your own expert, that's so true. Nobody else can know you as well as you know yourself. And I think you have a responsibility, really, to get to know yourself.
Totally.
Especially when you're suffering with challenges or ill health, because you can't just be told what to do. You need to understand what's working, and therefore you need to tune in. So for me, those things are a lot less about modalities and more to do with understanding your body. So moving it and understanding, what works for you and what's challenging. I love journaling, and I think the gratitude journal is one of those so simple things, and it's talked about a lot, but it's hugely helpful in getting to know yourself and understanding what parts of your life you are truly grateful for and what's working, and it can help you recognize those patterns. But all journaling, I think it's such an easy therapy for us all to embrace.
Yes.
And then I come back to self-love, and that is this whole being your own expert and really accepting where you are at the moment and getting to know yourself so that you truly embrace that. And for me, that does involve, mantras in the morning. As soon as I catch myself being rude about some aspect of myself, when my hip is hurting or I'm feeling bloated, we tend to go into this awful negative self-talk and sort of blaming our bodies. Whereas to become a real expert, we need to notice that and sit with it and understand it. And then from that, we can learn that, okay, wheat does bloat me, or a 2-hour session at the gym leaves me really sore and exhausted. I'm not getting the endorphins. I'm not having
not feeling good after that.
I'm not feeling good after that. And learning, what works for you, really. And I think that is, again, adventure and journey and all those beautiful terms, because it doesn't happen overnight, and I don't think you ever get there. I'm sure, hopefully, I'll keep learning and keep discovering, and as we touched on, as you change and things change, you have to get to know your body again. I had a child at 38, my beautiful little boy. My body completely changed.
I'm sure.
And it's starting that journey again with now knowing what I can do, what works for me.
Yeah. I think I love that you mentioned the gratitude journaling. That has been, like you said, it's so simple, but it absolutely has changed my mindset about so many things. It just sets sets the tone for such a more positive, abundant life. Just writing down what you're grateful for, and I think even acknowledging or honoring your body for the things that it can do. I know like you said, if you're bloated, it's easy to go into that mindset of being mad, but instead looking at it and being like, wow, my body is clearly not happy with that. It's trying to react in a way that's going to protect me, and it, can I tune into that, and can I listen? And the whole journey part, I think too, I mean, this is a lot of work, like you said. It's kind of our responsibility, but it's not easy work. And when I went through the transformational nutrition program, I remember her talking about like being true to yourself in the psychology module, and not like putting up this front when you're with your friends. And I remember being like, no, I don't do that. And at the time I was like, no, I'm pretty cool. I'm myself. And then like almost a year later now, you know, I keep processing over things and digging in, and I don't know that it's so much I'm being a different person. I just don't know how much I'm truly expressing like who I am and my beliefs, which I have, but I kind of just protect with this layer, you know, so then it's like now I realize that, and now I have to take the next step in letting that show, you know. And I think that happens in so many different areas of life, like revealing different layers, and first there's recognizing that it needs to be revealed, and then there's taking the next step and actually letting it come to fruition. So those journeys, they're beautiful.
No, absolutely. And I love what you said about the body's messages, because I think that is the point. Our body's often giving us, it's always talking to us.
Yes. Yep.
Telling us something, and then it's up for us to learn to tune into that. And really, when I say learn, I mean that's just because I think we unlearn it. As kids, we can tune into it, but we sort of unlearn it along the way, and we start ignoring it. We take pills when we're in pain, or you know, we take medication to override symptoms, and we don't allow us. And with feelings as well, I think it's you know, people talk about overcoming anxiety or grief or feeling sad, and we've forgotten that that's part of our existence. Yes. And that was a really massive lesson for me when someone just was pointing out that you can't have the good times without the bad times, and without being flippant, you can't feel joy and real happiness and peace, unfortunately, without having those other emotions. That is the range of emotions, and we just, if we can sit and feel them, they actually pass really quickly. Yeah. Because we suppress everything all the time. And I think I'm so fascinated by the mind-body connection, and how much happens in our heads, and then that is physically shown up in our bodies. Yeah. So that's, listening to your body's messages and really tuning in and finding out what it is you need to do right now.
Yeah, totally. One of those things I think that tend to be a sign from our bodies that we don't listen to is just being tired, especially if you're in a high stress situation, you're a mom with kids, you're a dad with kids, you know, whatever the situation is, you have a lot going on, like most people. But I think a lot of people get run down, and then they turn to coffee or caffeine or sugar rushes and things like that. So you're the luscious organic coffee lady. So I want to get your take on coffee, since it's a pretty hot topic in health these days. What's your opinion?
Okay, so firstly, you're absolutely right. I mean, the biggest thing my clients always say to me is they use words like exhausted and depleted and knackered, and I'm tired all the time. And when we opened Luscious Organic, we opened as more as a store, and we wanted, to offer organic meals and juices and smoothies, etc. And so coffee was a really tricky one for us. My beautiful partner absolutely loves his coffee, and he is a real coffee connoisseur, or coffee snob when I'm not feeling so good.
As is mine, I'll agree. They'd get along well.
And it's a real passion for him. So he's absolutely fascinated by the whole, we've been to India to visit coffee plantations, and the whole process from the growing to the harvesting and the roasting, and then the beautiful thing of actually making the coffee on this fabulous machine. So we had this sort of two sides, because to me, I am very rarely ever going to recommend that someone takes up drinking coffee. But I also feel that it comes back to, again, where you are in terms of your health. And, I know plenty of people who, our body can cope with a coffee. That's not really an issue, depending on your own health status. Yep. If you've got, problems with adrenal fatigue or very high levels of stress or anxiety, then coffee is very unlikely to do you any good. But it is a personal choice, and for me, there's sort of coffee. There's the health choice, but there is also the ethical choices about how we grow our coffee, where it comes from, what we pay for it, etc. So it's a huge topic. But at Luscious, we simply try and serve the best coffee we can at all those levels. So our coffee is from Peru, and it's grown and harvested by a women's cooperative, which was important to me. It's certified organic. It's fair trade. So both the workers and the wildlife are protected from dangerous chemicals, and a fair price is paid for it. And there are women involved with it. It's called Femenino, and there are women involved in the transaction all the way through, from the growing to the selling of it. Women have to be involved in the final business that sells it as well. So I think it's quite an empowering product from that, and it's in an area where they make money by selling coffee. Mm-hmm. So we then take it a step further. We also use certified organic milk, so we don't use cheap milk, because obviously dairy is another industry that has its issues, and how dairy cows are used and what happens to the boy cows, and also the use of hormones and everything else. So we then use certified organic milk. And then that sort of final part of the puzzle for us is that we use biodegradable packaging if you want a takeaway coffee, and we also sell reusable coffee cups. We sell these beautiful glass coffee cups that you could come back, and we offer you a discount if you bring your own cup. So my whole thing is holistic, and we have tried to take a truly holistic approach to how we make and sell our coffee. And it's a really integral part of our business. People love our coffee, and they have supported us in making those decisions, which makes our coffee more expensive than any of the other cafes in town. But people seem to really get that and appreciate it. And we don't preach. We sell coffee. I wouldn't recommend it to most of my clients. I love the odd coffee. So it is a personal choice, and I think it really, in terms of drinking coffee, really depends on your own health status and how you deal with it. If you have a coffee and get the shakes and feel jittery, there's probably a better choice for you.
Yeah. So what is your experience you mentioned getting jittery. So I used to get crazy jitters, like heart racing, when I would drink coffee. And that was long before I knew the value of having organic and different things like that. So do you feel like people experience that less with your higher quality coffee, or do you think depending on what your physical status is, that's what determines it more? Because I heard it was somewhat like an issue of mold and stuff in non-organic coffees. Do you think?
No, that's such a great question, and it's really interesting because when we started, that wasn't one of the things that I really thought about. I assumed coffee would, react to within you the same way. Mm-hmm. But feedback we've had from lots of people over the last couple of years has been exactly that. And that's one of the reasons they come back, because they don't have the same effect from our coffee, the coffee we're serving, as they do at other places. And Simon and I had a long conversation about this, and he did quite a bit of research. And for us, there are two reasons. A, the quality of the coffee is really good. It comes into WA and it's roasted here, and we get it quickly. So it's not being roasted somewhere else and then being imported and then on the road for ages. So the beans come in, they are processed in a certified organic roaster, and then she sends them straight down to us. So there's actually quite a small supply chain compared to most commercial coffees. And then on top of that, the way Simon, and this is where it gets technical barista talk, and I'm not brilliant, but the way Simon actually has set up our machine, we do a slightly shorter shot, so you get a lot of flavor, but you don't get the same amount of caffeine in the cup. So the technical, I can probably send you, I'll have to quiz him a bit more, but we've had a lot of people who've said that they don't seem to get the jitters and the heart racing as much or at all after drinking our coffee, and that was what Simon figured. He set it up so that you're still getting all this flavor, but without having the water running through the coffee for an extended period of time. So in theory, there's kind of less caffeine in the cup, but that's a theory. So I think it is both. I mean, I think good quality coffee, but also it is your health status and who you are. There are just too many of us who react differently to coffee. So I think that, we come back to bio-individuality.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I don't drink coffee often, but I see you guys have text messaging for coffee. You think I could get a delivery here to Chicago? It sounds amazing. I might have to make a special trip to Australia just to get some.
Yeah, no, it is. It's pretty good coffee.
That's great. And most people, like you mentioned, having a lot of flavor in there. Most people drink coffee for reasons other than flavor. Like we said, they're tired and they're looking for that pick-me-up and stuff. But since you don't recommend coffee, I know you have a lot of other really great suggestions for having higher energy levels in a more holistic way. What are those?
Yes, I think you're right. I mean, coffee, people talk about the taste, but generally it's because you're getting something in exchange for that coffee.
Yeah.
However, and I don't know, it's probably the same there, but in Australia, everybody's very into their coffee and the style of coffee. But at the end of the day, you're normally getting your pickup in the morning to get you through.
Well, and most people get a coffee with half a cup of sugar and some cream, and by the end, it's like a splash of coffee and all this other stuff.
I know, just milk and sugar, really. Yeah. So I think I said to you, most of my clients, the words that they use when they come and see me are big words like exhausted and depleted, and they have difficulty getting up in the morning. And I have several clients who need to take a nap in the afternoons. And often when I look at their overall lifestyle, it's sort of multifaceted. So there is the physical side. I think obviously moving your body somehow, even if it's dancing around your sitting room, just moving, getting fresh air and time in nature, and to break up that habit of sitting for long periods of time inside. I work with people who don't seem to get outside at all, and just making that simple change, getting out at lunchtime, getting out in the morning, getting out in the afternoon, and just sucking in some hopefully clean air and sitting on some grass or near a tree. There's obviously stress has a huge impact on our energy levels, and that whole cycle of your body reacting to a perceived threat. So I think that's something we can maybe talk about later, but that definitely puts people's energy levels low because they are having a physical reaction, which means that the body's not doing anything else that it should be doing. Diet and food generally, obviously avoiding processed food, sugar, but more importantly, I think it's looking at putting in the energy-giving foods. So making sure you are having plenty of greens and staying hydrated. I often get clients to keep a record of how much water they're actually drinking, and it's usually a lot less than they think they're drinking.
Yeah.
And that one improvement, I had one client who was astounded when she just started drinking water. Her energy levels increased substantially from that one change, and then we were able to tweak other things.
That's awesome.
Hormones. Yeah, and I think, hormones especially, I don't really understand men as well, but for us women, I mean, hormones play a huge part. And again, tracking your cycle and noticing times of the month when your energy levels may be lower, and that's okay. So, don't plan to do a massive project that week because your energy levels will be slightly lower. And so avoid reaching for coffee and sugar. Just know that that's the time maybe to do quieter projects or, put off the big things. And then overall, so when we look at holistically again, it's really overall satisfaction with life and community. And I mean, there's so much we could talk about, but I think if you're feeling isolated, working all the time, or you don't have close connections, your energy levels will suffer. So it's clicking into all of those parts of your life, your physical, your stress levels, your community, what you're eating, and understanding your body, so your hormones, etc., and obviously getting enough sleep. But often I find people who are getting plenty of sleep, but they still feel exhausted, so there's something else going on.
Yeah, and I feel like I think a lot of our listeners too would be the type to be eating cleaner and knowing that sleep is important, so then it's looking for those other things. And I love that you talk about connecting with other people, I think that's so often overlooked. We can get like sucked into our routines, and I think sometimes hearing like all these tips, it's like, oh my gosh, how do I add all of that? You know, I'm exhausted. I'm not going to add this stuff. But I think you could. I mean, I saw on your Instagram that I believe you guys do like walking coaching. Is that true?
Yeah.
So, I mean, perfect. You get to connect with people. You get to be outside. You get to move. It's de-stressing. So, like, you got like a quadruple whammy right there. And so I think just finding things like that can be so powerful too.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of, I actually did something in my Facebook group yesterday about walking. Because there's more and more to show. Walking does cover everything that you've just talked about. If you go walking with a friend, you've got connection, you're out in nature, you're moving your body, you're breathing, and it is a form of meditation. You can either make it a walking meditation and be really conscious about how you're walking, or just that time to clear your mind and do some breathing out in the fresh air. So I think, often we overcomplicate things, but if you're already, as many of my clients are, already eating well and already doing other forms of exercise, and it's still not working, we want to just get back to those little basics. Walking's awesome. It just ticks so many boxes. And we've been doing it forever.
I know you have some good recommendations for balancing meals. So what are those so that people know that they're not going to have like blood sugar spikes and crashes and stuff, even if they are trying to eat well already?
Yes. So I think when it comes to sort of, I do a workshop about eating for energy, and that really, the real trick to eating for energy is balancing what they call the glycemic load of your meal. So there are there's the glycemic index and the glycemic load, but mostly what we want to look at is making sure that each meal is balanced so as not to get that spike in your blood sugar, which then sets you off for a whole day of this kind of roller coaster effect. Yep. So the simplest way really is to always combine protein and fiber and a healthy fat at every meal. Because that gives you that sort of full spectrum, helps you absorb things more slowly, and therefore your blood sugars don't kind of rank up as they do when you're having like a coffee and a muffin for your breakfast. Often I would advise people to eat regularly, eat every 3 to 4 hours to maintain those blood sugar levels, but that doesn't work for everybody. So really tuning into your body, and there is, I wouldn't encourage people to eat when they're not hungry. So having in your mind, maybe having a scale of where you are in terms of hunger, with, 10 being Christmas Day kind of full and 1 being I could eat your arm off type of thing.
Christmas Day full. I love that.
Overeating on Christmas Day. But I think that, if you're aiming to be somewhere between a 4 and a 6, so just staying tuned into that. And I work with clients, because especially working with women who work or run their own businesses, it's not always easy to eat at set times. Yeah. We don't sort of have lifestyles that do that anymore. But if you're in tune with how hungry you are, it might be an idea, if you know you've got a meeting at 1 o'clock and you're not going to get lunch till 3 o'clock, then you probably do want to sort of fill up a little bit earlier and just maybe take your hunger level up to a 6 so that you are a little bit fuller. So that you know that you can kind of get through till 3 o'clock. Because our lifestyles are a little bit hectic, and most of us don't have set routines anymore. So I think for me it's really about, again, knowing what your body needs, tuning into that, and then being aware that what you don't want to do is end up being starving, which is when we then reach for the bad things. Yeah. So, well, not bad, but things that are going to spike that blood sugar and just kind of throw us off course for the day. So, lots of whole foods. I think processed foods are one of those things we can often reach for in desperation, because there's nothing else on offer. So, and avoiding sugar as far as possible. Sugar is such a hot topic at the moment as well. I don't know if it's like there, but here, every single night there seems to be another documentary on about the evils of sugar. Yes. So, yes, we don't want to be loading up on processed sugar, and just to be aware of how much sugar you're consuming. And I think for a lot of people, even when we're already health conscious, that noticing some of the processed foods that we're buying, which may be jars of sauce, it may be organic or or salad dressing, and those things often have hidden sugars in them. So just looking out for that. So, but yes, coming back to sort of eating for energy, it's as simple as trying to maintain the glycemic load of your meals and really balancing or combining fat, protein, and fiber at every meal and snack. And that often people notice a huge difference because you just step off that up and down feeling of grabbing something, crashing, grabbing something, and crashing again.
I think, too, you talked about how sugar is becoming like this evil, and they're doing more and more to reveal that. I think, I mean, our bodies are designed to kind of, like, we crave sugar when we're stressed, and so it seems like, oh, I should, you know, like, I'm stressed, I should eat some more sugar because I've got more going on, and I think just that reminder of, like, that's not really what our body needs. It just is it'll kind of create a quick short-term reaction that our body wants, you know, that spike in good hormones and things like that. But it too, like the energy, it crashes soon thereafter too. So I think just being even mindful, like you said, mindful of those times when you're going to be more tired based on your cycle and your hormones, like being mindful of the times that you have higher stress things going on, and setting yourself up for success and not having those high sugar options as easily available.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is, I often say to my clients, you know, I do think life is meant to be sweet. Like, we're meant to enjoy life.
Yes.
So, but at some point that's got quite twisted, and therefore we're dealing with stress or anxiety or feeling low, often by reaching for sweet things as well, because as you said, they give us that instant gratification. And there's a reason for that. You know, they've done all those wonderful tests on the brain to show us what happens when we have that sugar, and there's a reason that we want that feeling. So again, getting in tune with why we're eating and why we're reaching for sugar, and what is the feeling we're actually trying to deal with. Because that is really empowering as well. If you can sit and go, I am really fed up with today. It's been a whole day. I've hated everything, and I really deserve a large bar of chocolate. If you can just sit with that, just momentarily, and then maybe have other strategies as well, because however health conscious we are, we all have those days.
Oh, totally. Yep.
Something like that is going to solve all our problems. And it rarely does, and sometimes maybe having the chocolate is the right thing to do.
Yes.
But do it lovingly, and be
Yes.
kind to yourself, and enjoy it, and don't feel guilty, and then don't beat yourself up about it, because then you're on to the next stage of that cycle of then feeling bad because you've broken the rule, or you've done something you shouldn't have done. And I always have really good dark raw chocolate in my fridge.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely options around here for us too.
Yeah, and berries, frozen berries in the freezer, and just things that you can have when you just want to make yourself something. But I think the most important thing for me is to sit with the feeling, allow yourself to feel it, and then decide what you want to do about it.
Yeah.
And that may be to have a piece of chocolate, but it may actually be to go for a walk, or have a hot bath, or spray yourself with some beautiful flower essences, or something else that can help you to balance out. But make that choice consciously, and just know why you're doing it.
Love it. So for people who do feel they still need that coffee, what are some recipes? I know you have some good suggestions for like energizing smoothies and energy drinks that are a little bit easier on the body.
Yes, so I think, if you're with cold drinks, I am a big fan of the green smoothie. I know the world probably doesn't need another green smoothie recipe, but to me it is a really energizing drink, and I often work with people who, when they get into the habit of having their green smoothie every day, lots of other things happen for them, especially if they have it in the morning. Yes. It does reduce cravings, it does boost their energy. So my current sort of favorite green smoothie is, we've got a lot of, I was going to call it rocket, but I think you call it arugula. What do you call it?
Arugula?
Arugula, thank you.
Yeah.
So I do a beautiful smoothie with rocket and apple, banana, fresh lime or lemon if you have it, and then just add in a few superfoods depending on how you feel. I'll often add in a really good certified organic protein powder, and probably some maca for a little bit of extra energy, and throw in some seeds of your choice. Over there I think you're allowed to eat hemp seeds, so that would be a good option. Here, they're not sold for human consumption.
Really?
So you can eat them at home, obviously, but best to be safe. So something like, again, and using maybe nut milk or coconut milk as a base, so that you're just putting as much nutrition into that one glass, because it's so absorbable and it's so quick to make. And I think that's part of why it helps with energy as well. It's easy to do. You absorb it quickly. And I often say to clients to make a double batch in the morning and then just keep half in the fridge. So it's a really good afternoon snack if you are in a hurry or you have that moment where you think, I really need something. It's there, it's ready to drink, and then if you still want the coffee, have the coffee, but just maybe have that first.
Yep.
In terms of sort of other like cold drinks, I love to make like just a elixir with coconut water, probably a dash of sparkling water just to give it a sparkle. And then just really pimp it up, add in fresh herbs and fruits. It's so tasty. I did this at one of my workshops recently for everybody, and people were blown away. So, yeah, it's not a fizzy drink. It's not going to replace a kind of, what are those?
Pop.
fizzy drinks. But, you know, once you start getting into the habit of it, you'll notice that it's really hydrating, which is, I think, part of why it gives you the extra energy. And it's tasty, so it's not just having a glass of water, which people often struggle with. Yeah. And then kind of hot drinks. Oh my goodness. So obviously, I don't know if matcha green tea. It's so popular here at the moment.
It's growing fast. Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, there's a reason for that. And a matcha latte, you can still go to a coffee shop and order one and, you know, do all of that. So I think that's a lovely option. I make a beautiful warm nut milk, which we add, so like an almond or cashew base, and then add raw cacao, maca, and probably a little bit of raw honey, just to sweeten it a little bit. And again, for me, what that does is it gives you all the warmingness of a coffee, and it's creamy. And so it kind of, you know, without having the dairy or the caffeine, it ticks some of those boxes. And I think finally would probably be my lemon and ginger tea with fresh lemon, fresh ginger. Add a little bit of turmeric. You can also add cinnamon and peppercorns to give you that kind of spicy flavor. Just boiled water and honey. So often when people ask me for coffee alternatives, they want something that tastes like coffee. So if you want that, then roasted dandelion root is pretty good. We do a spiced dandy chai. But sometimes I do feel it's important to experiment with other drinks, because otherwise you're simply trying to replace something with I don't know, I think some people give up smoking and put nicotine patches on. It's like, I'm not sure that's really helping. So I think it is about expanding what you consume. Yeah. Allowing yourself to have a coffee if you need it, but or you really want it. But just exploring other flavors and textures and finding other things that will give you as much satisfaction, because often what it's about is the ritual as much as the beverage.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about the matcha. So I have not ventured into matcha. I've looked into it. There's this awesome coffee that my husband gets, and they have like this whole new matcha, and I was reading about it, and they got the fancy like little whisk thing, and I was like, that all seems just very intimidating to me. So can you kind of give me some tips for how I would maybe go about that?
Well, I think we got it because one of our suppliers, she's called the Healthy Chef, and she does a whole range of supplements and stuff. And so she started importing a really good quality matcha. So that was really where I found out about it, and then slowly people started coming in to ask us. So, I mean, her recommendation, she does sell a beautiful bowl and a brush and everything, but we don't. I just sort of put it into the cup or the mug, pour on the pre-boiled water. So they're quite fussy about the temperature. I think it needs to be about 80 degrees. Okay. So you don't pour it sort of, you know, literally boiling. And then they often, that brush is normally like a bamboo, I think they call it a bamboo matcha whisk. Yep. So you just kind of whisk it in to dissolve it in effect, and then top up with the water, or like a hot nut milk, like a warmed nut milk if you want to make it into a latte. And then that's that.
And it's a green tea, right? It's like the ground leaves, kind of?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I might have to try that.
So it's the whole leaf basically that they've ground up. Yeah. So you're getting all of that I think it's mostly the antioxidant power that they're so excited about, but all those other nutrients that are actually in the leaf. And I think in terms of, I'm trying to remember, but it was a ridiculous figure. It's something like it's equivalent to 10 glasses of regular brewed tea.
Oh my.
In terms of the nutritional value. So anti-aging, antioxidants, and supposedly, I think it's meant to have cancer-fighting properties. I know that's a bit controversial, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a supercharged green tea.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you? I know you're in Australia, but you do coaching via Skype too. So how can they reach you?
So at the moment, my cafe has a website, which is lusciousorganic.com.au. They can also find me. I have a Facebook group called Live a Luscious Life, and I'm also on Instagram as @Mitle Southey, and those are probably the main areas of. So the website's got my contact details on. There's a tab for coaching. Yes, and then I work with people, all over Australia and around the world via Skype. Skype's a wonderful thing.
It really is. Yeah, and we'll be sure to include links to all of that and some of the recipes that you shared too. We'll link to all of that in the show notes. Before we go, let's ask my two ending questions, which are always fun to hear. First, if you had 5 minutes to create better wellness, what would you do?
I think I'd go for a walk. I think if you're anywhere near nature, just get out and spend 5 minutes walking, hugging a tree, sitting on the grass, reconnecting with your breath. Yeah. Otherwise, probably I would pick meditation. If you're stuck in an office and you can't get out, sit at your desk, close your eyes, and meditate for a few minutes.
Good. Love it. What is your favorite health habit?
Oh, Becky, this is so hard.
I know.
I think because with a habit, it's something for me that I'm doing consistently, and I've already told you I'm not very good at doing it. I think that probably, again, I'm cheating is two. One would be staying hydrated. I mean, drinking water, that's my kind of one of my non-negotiables every day. But the other, as a long-term health habit, is self-love, and really practicing that on a daily basis and asking yourself, what would I do if I truly love myself in this situation? So whenever you're making a decision, how would that look like if I really love myself? And I think for me, it's a really amazing guiding voice, and it does help me live a much healthier and happier life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today. I love that you've been so upfront and honest about the journey that you've been on and how you've tried to find your own path and how you continue to do that. And I really appreciate all the insight you've given us for living a healthier and more energized life.
Thank you. It was such an honor to talk to you. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. We'll talk to you later, okay?
Okay. Take care.
Yep, you too. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode of Gather for Wellness Radio. We'd greatly appreciate if you'd leave a review over on iTunes, Stitcher, or the blog. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends, family, and on social media. We hope you'll join us for the next episode. But until then, keep being awesome.
The information on this podcast and on gatherforwellness.com is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended to be taken as medical advice. Becky encourages you to make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with a qualified healthcare professional. The entire contents of this website and podcast are based upon the opinions of Becky Litwicki and her guests, unless otherwise noted. The information provided is for entertainment purposes only.